Hey folks, what's happening? AC Mike Show podcast, episode number deuce. So great friend, guy I met some time ago, a little more than a decade or right around there, talking development, talking about Atlantic City, and Mr. Evan Sanchez. Welcome to the show, sir.
It's great to be here, Mike. Thank you for having me.
I appreciate you coming in, taking the time for us. Evan, what we're doing here is a little long form, a little different from what we do on WOND. I like to give my partners out there a shout out, media partners. Let folks know what, brought Evan Sanchez back to Atlantic City. But prior to that, Atlantic City guy, Atlantic City born, bred. Talk to us a little bit.
Atlantic City guy. Atlantic City is my hometown, a place that I love. And growing up, heard about the heydays, the glory days, the good old days, all that kind of stuff growing up. I'm in my 40s now. And so kind of, Atlantic City was much more of a casino town when I was growing up, but you hear a lot about kind of time before that and what an incredible destination it was, what an incredible place to grow up, to shop, to this, to that, everything. Atlantic City is supersized. Atlantic City always punches above its weight, and it's a place that I love, but felt like for me, there was an opportunity to go to school in New York City and then build business in New York City. And that was always, that's the big apple. It's New York, and I love it. So, but coming home after building business in New York, really in the tech world, was in 2015 when things were really tough. When things were bottoming out and casinos were closing. My wife was also from here. Kelly and I kind of looked at each other and said, like, what do we want to do? We knew we were ready to leave New York. And the question was where? Do we want to move to the West Coast, out to Silicon Valley? Do we want to move to another place that we love, like New Orleans? Or, do we want to come home? And we decided to come home to Atlantic City and kind of really get a sense of what was going on. And that's where I got to meet you. Yeah. I got to know what was going on through AC Mike way back when. And a lot of other people like you that were invested in this town, care about this town, wanted to be better, understood what was already great about it. And that was inspiring to me 11 summers ago now, 11 years ago, 2015. I was just with Daryl Boltice, was the founder of Atlantic City Arts Foundation, and he was with Joyce Hagan that summer. And I've been involved with the Arts Foundation since then. I got to meet them in August of 2015. And, what Joyce was building around arts and culture right on Tennessee Avenue. And, all these people that were doing good work in Atlantic City, and felt like there was an opportunity for me. And then ultimately my buddy Zenith, who's one of my best friends, best men in my wedding, and, all that good stuff, godfather to my children, to also, he's from here, come back and get action, get busy, get doing, not planning so much, but just doing a lot. And there were already plans, to be fair. There were already plans, many, many plans about, hey, what do we need? What's this town need to really get going? And it felt like starting small, building collectively, building small business, building nonprofits, building with the arts, working together, everybody. That's what has driven us for over a decade now.
And the revitalization, you talk about 2015, Evan. It was right around then too, where the AC Mike thing started. A guy, I'm talking about a good meal and whatnot. For the couple of years, my nephew got me on social media, and I always like telling this story. Jose, I appreciate you, man, little Jose.
Thank you, Jose.
And listen, in our house too, during Christmas or Thanksgiving or New Year's, say Jose in a gathering, about 9 necks snap. So but he knew he's little Jose, Jose B, Jose, but the family understands. So 2015, as you said that. Again, a very interesting time. 5 casinos closing. Somebody called, hey, yo, AC Mike, where do I get a good steak? Don't want to go in a casino. Nothing wrong with a casino, but want to hit a restaurant around. And I go to my friend, is this guy pulling my chain, calling me air-conditioned Mike? Whatever. And quite frankly, she said, no, embrace it. But my point in saying that, and you were one of the ones, too, that inspired me, and I was kind of doing this thing. I was like, Lord, I was maybe about 2 years I was doing the, a sunrise and a bike ride and great events and lighthouse and big and small type events. I said, 5 casinos are closing. Do we take it down or do we hit the gas, Lord? Lord said, hit the gas, man. Hit the gas, continue to show. That'll all come back. And I appreciate it. And you were one of the folks out there to continue to say, Mike, I like what you're doing when we'd see each other on New Hampshire Ave. And so you bringing not only, again, I'm by myself. I'm here, right? I'm single at the time. You're bringing your family. You're bringing your wife. You're coming back. You're familiar with it. And that's the type of message that I love putting out, because not only that this dude was born here, raised here, and then went out to the world, but you come back at a time when it's not the most luxurious time to come back, but you also have all these things. I remember talking Rutgers studies with you and that sort of thing. So talk about that, because again, it's.
I think the thing for me is when I came back home, when Kelly and I moved back, and this is before we had kids, and we have 2 girls now that are 9 and 6. So this has been a little while. This is the first thing that I was really committed to do was listening first. Right. Like, not come back with a, hey, I've been in the big city and been doing things and this and that. It was like, hey, let me come back home, talk to people that have been here, talk to people that have been doing things, really understand what's working, what's not working. And, oh my gosh, it was a research study. I could have done a PhD in Atlantic City plans at the time. I mean, I met Elizabeth Taranick very early in that process, who was the director of planning at the time. It has gone on to do many things in Atlantic City. And she showed me the treasure trove of plans, CRDA plans, city plans, Rutgers plans, you name it. Atlantic City is a very planned place in certain ways. And one of those plans that really resonated with me was called the Downtown Loop. And so you allude to that. It was Rutgers study. It was architectural students that came in and looked at kind of the center city beach block. So that what you would think of as a downtown, central business district, and they were totally abandoned. I mean, there was just vacancy galore. They had been underinvested for decades, a lot of speculation at that point, people holding on to what were perceived as lottery tickets. They thought, oh, another casino is going to come in and pay us $200 a foot or some crazy amount of money, when at this point, the real market price for beach block property, and I think people will be shocked by this, was probably about $8, $10, $12 a foot. That's what we were buying land for back in 2016. And so 2016, $8, $10, $12 a foot. And now maybe fair market is like $40 a foot or whatever. But, that's 5X growth from where it was. Maybe even some are $50 and maybe even more in certain places. But where it was just really depressed. And one plan, this Downtown Loop plan, really resonated because it was right in the center city. If you look between Bally's and you look between resorts, those pockets, Claridge resorts, whatever you want to call that zone, which was referred to as the dead zone,
yeah.
previously by Councilman Shabazz.
That's right.
That sounds like a good idea. Let's go into the dead zone. But why was it a dead zone? Because there was a lot of antisocial behavior. There was a lot of activity that was really problematic. It was very difficult to get around there unless you were looking to do something illicit. That was what was happening. And so what we thought was, hey, let's start small. We're not, Z nor I are real estate developers. We're not restaurateurs or any of that stuff. We're entrepreneurial. We're entrepreneurs. We figured that, hey, there's a problem. There's an opportunity. We can work on that. This is our hometown. We didn't know exactly how, but we knew we were going to figure it out. And I always say, if you don't give up, you can't fail. And I think we took that mentality. And when we were having conversations with folks like you and other people that were really positive, honestly, there were a lot of people that were positive. I'll say the overwhelming was negative, maybe 90-10 or something like that. But the 10% of people like you, Elizabeth, and others that were really positive about like, hey, we're going to build the new foundation out of this proverbial rubble, because there had been so much damage done. That was inspiring. And, I appreciate you saying that, I helped to kind of, when you were going through, hey, should I continue or not? I felt the same way.
Right.
Hey,
right,
we're going to build asset focused. We're going to build on what's working. We're going to build on people that are believers and are going to be positive, because you're not going to accomplish much with negativity. I never have found that being negative gets you very far. Sometimes you might seem smart if you're a pessimist, but optimists get stuff done. And so I think we have that in common. We believe and we're willing to put in the work. So, Z and I said, all right, cool. We took on this little project. We opened a little coffee shop called Heyday Coffee, which now is 8 years in the running, which is on New York Avenue Beach Block. The Leadership Studio was the first business to open on Tennessee Avenue. So I always have a tremendous amount of respect for Allie and Kathy, who said yes. They had a successful yoga studio in Northfield, Grace and Glory. They still do. Allie still has that. But she said, yeah, we're doing work. And this is where I think it's everybody working together. That was a nonprofit called the Leadership Studio. They were already doing pop-up yoga around town. They were,
listen, not an easy thing to do neither. Because I would go in there with my bike, and I was in half decent shape at the time, still coaching wrestling a little bit. And man, I would be sweating my ass off in the corner, like it's just like, oh my God, I thought this was supposed to be easy, but it was great though. But again, it's on Tennessee Avenue. Go right ahead.
No, Mike. I mean, and they were doing pop-ups around town. They were in the public parks, and they were looking for a permanent home, and they found it on Tennessee Avenue. So always going to give credit to folks that were early and really believed in it and were willing to put their money where their mouth was. So Kathy, Ali, Heyday, the chocolate shop originally was made with Deb and Mark, and then the beer hall. Those are kind of those anchor tenants right there. And from that, here's the crazy thing: like this is before a great developer like Pat Fasano was involved. And we'll get to kind of how Pat got involved and what he's done, because he's an incredibly talented person and another wild man. He just believes it, and he's going to make things happen.
Energy.
You'll have to have Pat on here too. I'm sure it's good TV too, man. I'm sure it's good podcast. So, but yeah, that was like the earliest days, was just a really small sense that, hey, we're going to get a couple things going and then we're going to scale it out. It was always just to be a model and then let it grow. And compounding is one of the most powerful forces in the world. So is inertia. You got to get the ball rolling. But once you do, it rolls and rolls and rolls. And I think right now, to fast forward after a decade, we're at that tipping point where new concepts are opening, new housing is coming in, new apartments, new townhomes, new this for rent and for sale. And there's a lot in between that, which we can get into. But there was a long-term commitment to the vision, and we were not going to give up. And we are not. We're still early days, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much more. Again, there's the development, and we'll get into that. But here's one of the things I want to go back a little bit, Evan, too, and just let folks know, Columbia University, great university. There's so many places you could have went and did. And again, you moving. Elizabeth, you mentioned, moving, coming in. Collazo, moving. Myself coming here, after retiring from the Atlantic County Department of Public Safety, fancy name for the jail. Right. But just staying, and I loved it. So those folks coming in, they're investors. You guys are investors. You're doing, but you're not only that. Again, nothing wrong with you opening up in a business here in Atlantic City and living elsewhere off the island. But it was like, to me, it showed, what? There's some real texture to that. So important. But talk about, Authentic City Partners a little bit. I mean, I want to get into what you're
we'll get
doing.
Into the nitty gritty. Yeah. So, I do think proximity is a superpower. I do think being here 24/7, especially in their earliest days, is really, really important. I'd say it was essential for me to be living, breathing, working 24/7 Atlantic City stuff. It really, that level of commitment, I think, and I always say this to entrepreneurs, is really, really important, especially in their earliest days. If you're not passionate and if you're not there, it's very, very difficult to make anything happen. But Authentic City Partners, Z and I had a conversation. He was going to leave BlackRock, which is the largest asset manager firm in the world.
Holy smokes,
a great career. I was an entrepreneur in New York and had built a successful business there. To leave, there was sacrifice. There's supposed to be sacrifice. That's a part of it. You're supposed to sacrifice for things that you believe in, things that you care about. And so coming home was an opportunity, but obviously was a sacrifice too. To leave New York, to leave that world. What do you do now? Well, I'm building on a dilapidated block that had been beaten down for decades. A little bit different than at the cocktail party.
Looking at you like The Rock when he used to raise that eye. Like, where? Tennessee? Where?
Yeah, the people's eyebrow was being raised. I was 31 when I moved back. So, I think that's when people are really focused on, well, let me continue to level up in the career, not demote yourself to, but I we believed in it. And so Authentic City Partners is our company basically to do real estate development, to build small business in Atlantic City. And so that's the name of our company. And people don't know that company, and really doesn't make sense for them to know it, but they'll know concepts that we have, like Heyday Coffee. Or Cardinal, which is a new American restaurant partner with Chef Michael Brennan, who had a little bistro down in Ventnor for a number of years.
Am I right when I say this? Farm to table. When you think
I mean, we do, and we're going to try to layer on more of that. We're actually, growing more on property, looking to add a greenhouse, all these types of things. But the Orange Loop at the time was just a Tennessee Avenue transformation. So that project plan that Elizabeth had from the Rutgers students, the downtown loop, became the Tennessee Avenue transformation, which was really those couple of small businesses working together. And then kind of from there, the goal was to continue to expand, which is where somebody like a Pat Fasano comes into the picture, where I met him on Tennessee Avenue. Pat was looking to do a little bit of development near where Stockton was coming in. So over on this end of town, kind of the Chelsea neighborhood. When I first met Pat, this is a classic Pat story. I met Pat on Tennessee Avenue. It was just a vacant lot across from, I think, where Heyday was going in or something, like one of the early concepts. And Pat pulls up, gets out of the car. It just parks on a vacant lot. It just parks. Classic Pat, just park the car. I'm like, that's not my lot. And he's just like, oh, whatever. They're not going to tow my car. Okay. Pat walks into the building. He's like, okay, this is good. This is like a, it was probably close to finish, but it wasn't open. Oh, this is good. I can do better, but this is good. Which I love that about Pat. Right. And then what he showed us, he said, all right, hey, Zeke, Evan, come up and let me show you what I've done in Asbury Park. Right. And this is a really important part of the story too, because when you're in those early days, you can just push through, figure things out, but it's really helpful to have somebody like a Pat who's a mentor and has done it before. And I give Pat a ton of credit for what he did in Asbury Park, because in the early 2000s, he was buying in Asbury Park and building concepts like Bond Street Bar. And so when he took us up there, he gave us a tour of Asbury Park, which I wasn't familiar with, because Asbury Park was a place that we'd go to. Z and I would go to when we were growing up to see shows at the Boardwalk Convention there. But then we would get the heck out, because there was nothing going on. Yeah, nothing going on in the 90s, early 2000s either. And so we were going to see shows, and what Pat showed us blew our minds. Like, oh my God, what concepts that were killer, great new housing, all these things that, and this is 2017 maybe. So now Asbury is now very well known. It's Brooklyn by the beach and all that kind of stuff, but it was still middle of the growth. And we're like, wow, this is eye-opening. Right. This is very cool. Like, he's like, this is what we're going to do here, boys.
And this is the dude.
This is what we're going to do here, boys. Right. And Pat and I have the same birthday, just a few decades off. But he said, it very much like, look, when I was doing Asbury, people said, you guys, you're crazy. It's never going to happen. And now, 20 years later, 15 years later, look at where we're at. We're going to do the same thing here. So then Pat really kind of showed us how real estate development works, where you have to assemble land, you have to buy more, you have to open things. Sometimes those concepts don't always last, but you have to keep going. You have to find better operators. You have to continue to do these things, which we really didn't understand the game fully. And so Pat really helped us to understand that. And we've partnered with him. We have things independently, but sometimes we do things together. And that was a really good tipping point for us, for Z and me, to say, okay, cool. Now we understand. And so that's when the loop became the loop. So the Orange Loop wasn't a concept until really Pat came into the mix. And we said, oh, we're not on Tennessee Avenue. We're multiple blocks. Right. We're Tennessee Avenue. We're St. James. We're New York Avenue. Where are we at? The Orange properties, right here. Here we are in the Orange property. So at that point, we had expanded into the Orange Loop. So let's brand this thing. Let's lean into our history. And that's something that's really important. And I appreciate that you have an understanding of this. This is the other thing that I was doing when I was reading these sort of plans, was also reading the history of Atlantic City, because I was ignorant of my own hometown, to be fair. I did not know the incredibly rich history of my own hometown. And, I was reading books, by like Judge Nelson. I was reading Boardwalk by Brian Simon, who's a Temple professor, Boardwalk of Dreams. Some of the things, oh, wow, why is Atlantic City the way it is? What happened? Where's the redlining? Where's this, that? And just my own ignorance. So kind of pulling all that history to say, well, let's lean into it, but let's not get stuck in it. And this is a key thing, Mike.
Very good.
You can't get stuck in the past. You got to use it to push you forward. And that's why Heyday is called what it is. This is a zenith, a triple entendre, the rare triple entendre. Heyday, which is spelled Hayday, is kind of the promoter of the rolling chair. William Heyday in the late 1880s kind of came up with the rolling chair, saying, well, everybody likes to be pushed. Because Atlantic City was originally like this health kind of health and wellness
right?
kind of the late
Jonathan Pitney, right?
You got it. Yeah. So that was the thing. But the brilliance of Heyday was, wait a second, you don't have to be sick to want to get pushed in a rolling chair. Yeah. It's nice. It's luxurious. Right. So he really blew it up. And so that's why Heyday is called that. And, obviously Heyday, like the heyday back in the day, and then also like heyday, like good morning kind of thing. Right. So, but it's spelled Hayday. Same thing for Orange Loop, though, was like, well, what do we do to recognize the history, to create a little zone? There's places like the Loop in Houston, or in I think in Kansas City, they call the Loop. And we're like, okay, so the Orange Loop. But our goal now, and it has been since we started to really expand, was that the whole area is going to be called the Loop. That whole zone of sort of beach blocks between resorts and Claridge will be called the Loop, because that's where people want to be. That's the central business. That's the zone. That makes sense. You have a reverse peer effect too. People coming off the boardwalk, which is our promenade. So the boardwalk is the promenade. That's where people want to be. Get them to come off. We unfortunately train people not to come off the boardwalk for a long time. That's real.
Many moons.
For decades. Yep. And that's why I also know, look, we didn't get into this position overnight. We're not going to get out of this position overnight. So for many decades, we will continue to work, and we will get to a great place. But that's kind of like, the Authentic City partners with the Heyday kind of opening early. I mean, Z and I were in the coffee shop with our partner, Lauren, who helped us open the shop, one of our best friends. We were in there making drinks. We were serving you coffee, Mike. We're very comfortable doing whatever. We always say, if you're not willing to clean the toilets, don't be an entrepreneur. Right. Don't do it. Fine, you want to be an investor, you want to be an LP, you want to put money into other things. But if you want to be an entrepreneur, an operator, you better be willing to clean the toilets.
They clean it up, right? Do what you got to do, put the gloves on and whatnot. And real quick with the loop too, it's the walkability. This came out of your mouth. You were telling me, so Mike, this is what we're doing. This is the concept. When you leave Tennessee or you leave Heyday, you walk over to the pub so folks could come back and forth and, not only on the boardwalk, and it's so key, and it seems like a small thing, but what was happening out there was not a lot.
It was hard to walk. The thing is, I think, Ducktown has a lot of great international restaurants and that walkability, and I think it's underrated. I think it's an amazing part of Atlantic City to eat out in, whether that's, old school places like White House or Angelo's or, international restaurants like Poncho's or whatever.
Love
and
it.
Docks,
Love
of course, and Ducktown, all these places.
Barbara's Fish Market.
I love them. But other parts of Atlantic City were very tough to walk in. And what people are looking for, whether they're millennials like me or otherwise, is walkability. You need amenities near each other. You need business near each other, and then you need housing near that or on top of that with that mixed use. And that was the vision. So the downtown loop that Elizabeth worked with the Rutgers students, all we did is take it. We didn't come up with anything. We just implemented it. We just started to get busy doing it. And those initial businesses then expanded to many more businesses. There are now, when we started and there were businesses open, there were 2 beach block bars in Atlantic City. There were 2 beach block bars in Atlantic City. The Irish Pub and what was the Piccadilly Pub, which is now King's Pub. That was it.
That's right.
That was it, Mike, in Atlantic City in 2015. That is nuts. There was another bar right before we came back that was that barcade concept, the amusement Perfectly Innocent.
Perfectly Innocent, yeah. Tennessee.
Yeah. But they closed before we came back. That was like 2014 when they closed. So the idea was, more is better. You want to have the Cardinal. You want to have a brand new spot that opened, Nuso Cucina. I just was in there before I came over here. You want to have your Heyday Coffee. You want to have the Tennessee Avenue Beer Hall. You want to have Bar 32. You want to have the Iron Room just came back. You want to have Chef Kevin. You want to have the more is better. More is better. And I think sometimes we fear that, but new concepts, more concepts is the answer. Yep. Building more.
And to your point too, Evan, background public safety, when you got that walkability, when you have all those people around, the bad guy, and I'm going to say this, the bad guy stays away, goes away a little bit. It's obvious.
It's classic. It's classic.
It's not a place to squat or whatnot. But again, to have that vision, to see that through a study or whatnot, and you and Zenith and Pat and some of the others, again, I'll say it over and over again, and I'll never tire of saying it. I applaud you guys for being able to take that shot and just say, let's freaking do this.
I couldn't live with myself if I didn't.
Right.
Like, it's one of those classic, what happens if it doesn't work? Well, hey, you move on, you live your life, whatever. But what I couldn't live with not trying to build a better Atlantic City when I thought I could possibly be a part of that change. And Z felt that way. And then when we met other people, they felt that way. And you just keep going and good things happen. If you're failing forward, you're not failing. Just keep going. But look, I think sometimes we look at Atlantic City as so unique that it's actually bad. Because I lived in New York for a long time. I lived in Brooklyn. I lived in Queens. I traveled a lot of places, was fortunate to go to many places. City's a city. Atlantic City is a city by the sea. Sometimes we want to view it a little bit like, it's so, I don't even know why we do this. It's a shore resort town. It can't be a city by the sea. I'm like, well, Asbury Park's a city by the sea, and they have tourists. They got visitors. They got people living there too. Why can't we imagine that we have density? Why can't we imagine that we have full-time residents? Why can't we imagine that people have a mix? They want to have a second home here? Great. You want to live here full-time? Great. You want to open a business here? Great. Why does it have to be something else? And I do think that's partially because we in 60s, 70s really moved away from that. Okay. And when you look at the book Boardwalk of Dreams, you really see why some of those underlying things happened. And then casinos were really to save Atlantic City. That was what they were coming in to do, was to save Atlantic City. But in my opinion, you're never going to save a city with big buildings. Yeah, you're not going to do it. And for us, ground up construction, we were talking about. Ground up development too, community centered, community level development. That's what's going to make the difference. And we were joking about this. I'd rather have $1,000 million projects than $1 billion project.
That stuck with me last night. We talked yesterday about that, and it really did. It just makes so much sense.
Think about what that would look like if we took the streets. And when we talked about our model, it wasn't that different than the walk. And the walk is great. The walk is also primarily at the time chain outlets. Again, I love chain restaurants. I got nothing wrong with chain restaurants. I built a big business off chain restaurants before, and it's been phenomenal. But people are looking for authentic local experiences. They want to know what locals want. They want to go where locals go. They want that. Now, they might want to go and see Shakira at Boardwalk Hall, too.
Right.
We got that, too.
Yeah.
What a gift.
Right.
We got Shakira. We got Rufus the Soul on the beach. And we got a little Heyday Coffee. And we got a side pony print shop that can give you cool merch or print you cool T-shirts. Like, we have all of those things. And I'm obviously very loop focused. But we could talk about Ducktown. We could talk about the Inlet. We could talk about Chelsea. You have to think about Atlantic City as a city with neighborhoods. And sometimes we get removed by that. Yep. And this is why community development corporations and things like that, which kudos to Jim Rentala to help getting those going. That is, the Jim Johnson report identified these types of things. And again, I read the Jim Johnson report and I have a ton of respect for Jim Johnson because he came here. He actually studied what was going on. He spent the time here. He put in the work and then you have to implement it. And so that's sometimes where I see we got to execute. And, for me, it's just idea, iterate over and over and over again. That's the entrepreneurial, that's just who I am.
Not rocket science, but very in the sense of having to do, be into action, and not so much in the way of meetings. I mean, I've been into a ton of meetings through the years, and some good, some bad, and some you just know bullshit.
Look, if you're going to have a meeting, let's take notes.
Right.
Let's make sure we have accountability. Right. Who's doing what and when. Let's not have a meeting to meet, in my opinion. Now, you can strategize. We want to have a whiteboard session. Fine.
Yep.
But why are we meeting? To get something done. And so I think that is a gift of being in New York for as long as I was there, is like, I don't have time for it. Right. Teddy Roosevelt is a hero. Get action. Be a man in the arena. Yeah. You take your hits, that's fine, but be the man in the arena. And I always come back to that because Atlantic City can be a place where people are very negative about what's going on. And they oftentimes, it feels like people want things to fail. And if you expect things to fail, they're more likely to fail.
Listen, I say this is what brought me here. Loved it. I got some brothers in the trades. Mom and Pop would put the 8 of us in the station wagon with some cousins as well. No seatbelts at the time, too. And just would do some beach time, free beaches. Mr. Peanut is handing out bags of peanuts. But when I was about to retire, I'm what do I want to do? Do I want to stay in Hamilton? We had nothing wrong with that area. But I said, you know what? No, I'm going to where I go all the time. Listen, you mentioned it, Shakira. I mean, Tyson and Spinks. Anchor Rock Club now, and these smaller places and whatnot. What we're doing. If you want to go see something, a show, we don't close down for the summer. There's always something going on, and that's the beauty of it. You don't have to have a ton of money. You don't have to have the $600 ticket. You want to go see a show? You go see a show. You got all these great casino hotels and Boardwalk Hall. And again, I mentioned Anchor Rock Club and what they do there. Great. So that's the beauty of it for me. Again, I loved it back in the day. I loved the party. I was a partier. You'd have to get your permission slip signed. Hey, Evan, we're going for a couple days, bro.
I love that too. We have that too.
We have that too. Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. That's the beauty. That's what's kept me here. And that's what I try to sell to someone. I was like, dude, just get in the car and let me take you around a little bit. Yeah. And that's the truth of it. That you mentioned the restaurants. You go into Ducktown. You want the Afghan and French. You got Satara. Like, what? You want to go to get a roll? You got Formica's right down the street. Ponchos. I could go on. And up and down the city. It's like no other. I mean, I appreciate it. Again, I'm a homer. I get to travel a little bit here and there. But you really, in this 48 blocks, there's so many different experiences. And that's where I've started my platform. It's an experience. It's not about Mike. It's not about this or that, whatever. Come and experience this. And now the revitalization, what you're doing. So you got me excited about that part because that's what turned me on in the beginning.
And I think that's when people are turned on to that. And thank you for curating that experience because I do think people need a little bit of curation to really understand it and to really get what they're looking for. Because whatever you're looking for is available, but sometimes you need a little bit of guidance to get there. So you do that consistently and have for a long time. And I think that's really, really important to recognize. There's so much to offer. And we are committed to working on the challenges that are there too. Yeah. We are committed to working on the things that are real because not all of it is perception. There are challenges.
100%.
I got to be totally honest. That is real. Yep. And we have never, ever not been wide-eyed. From the very beginning when it was a lot more challenging where we are to today where there's still opportunities. I was just doing a walk before now with CRDA in the city to go over some of the opportunities to make things better. I look at it as not just challenges, but opportunities to improve. Right. And that kind of helps me frame it frame it the way that I want to, which is how do we continue to work on things to make them a little bit better, and in another decade, where could we be?
Continue to be proactive. I mean, that's the whole idea, right? And we talk about this quite a bit. You know, I try to come in, and I know you do, and you spoke about it early on, and a restorative narrative. We're not naive by any stretch. You know, when I'm talking to people, yeah, we got the same problems other cities have and whatnot. You know, what we want is clean, safe, well lit, you know, and I know that's a cute little catchphrase, but that's what we're working towards.
Yeah, but the things that I think are missed sometimes are the incredible diversity of this town.
Exactly.
That's an amazing asset. It's an amazing asset. Like for me, my father was an immigrant from Mexico. He came here, started to do things here, met my mom at Los Amigos, which is the only Mexican restaurant at the time in the late 70s, early 80s. And, you know, that's the thing. I think there's so much of that, and I don't want to lose any of that. I want one of the greatest things that happened with casinos is the world came to us. The world came to us with casinos opening, and so many people came here to open small businesses, to work in the casinos, and that diversity is an incredible strength that Atlantic City has. I want to celebrate it more. Yeah. You know, I want to celebrate that more, and oftentimes we can celebrate it through food because that's a good entree. That's a good access point for people is to enjoy international food, like you said, Satara or Pancho's or wherever. There's so many little spots that are great. That is a real asset. The things that this town needs now, in my opinion, in addition to those, more housing, better housing.
Bodies.
And that's really what we're working on. You know, we're adding housing to the loop. We are adding 100+ units, apartments and townhomes over the next 6 to 12 months. That's Pat, that's Zubek, that's me, that's Z, that's other people doing that. That needs to come online, Longacre as well. That needs to come online, and then people got to be here. If you're working here, come live here. If you're thinking about a second home and you're not quite sure about price points on the Jersey Shore because they've blown up a lot since COVID, it's, again, I use affordable in quotes because when I talk about affordability and I say what the price points are for some of the townhomes, people say that's not affordable. Fair. But compared to other Jersey Shore towns on the beach blocks, they're very affordable comparatively. Now, do we need better affordable housing? I think we do. You know, and that's a different thing. It's not what we've been focused on, but it is a need to in this town to have better affordable housing for people that are in a different income bracket. But we do need a lot more people in this town, and we need people that have some disposable income to help to support small business and all of that growth that's coming. You need the people here, not only on weekends and during the summer, that density, which we do. I mean, it floods in. You come down here on a summer weekend, and it is amazingly packed. But yes, there is seasonality. Obviously, having operating businesses, we see that. There's seasonality. And we want to be able to drive more people coming in regularly, and having people live here is a part of that.
It's a huge part. I mean, we've been stuck somewhere around, and again, living full time or second homes, whatever we want to call it, or third homes, is, you know, about 35 to 38,000. And it's Heyday, I want to say 60 to 65,000. And my point in saying that, we are a part of the Live Work initiative, you know, and you know, talk about that a little bit. You know, really, I like to say live, work, play, but I like to live work because that's where it's going to be.
Yeah, and I think that live part is the most important of it right now. There is a lot of work here still. We need to diversify the economy.
Right, exactly.
We do. Yep. There's a lot of play here. There's not enough people living here. And to your point, 100 years ago or whatever it was, 75 years ago, we had 65, 70,000 people here. That was without any high rise. That's all low rise, right?
That's
so think about that. There was no up, just out. So the inlet was packed with row homes and stuff like that. We're going to bring that back. Obviously, developers are doing that right now, which is amazing. But the Live Work initiative is something that is really, really important. And I'm glad we're both dedicated to it. And a lot of people that care about this town are, because we want to make sure that people understand what a great place Atlantic City is to live. That is really, really important. We need more businesses coming in, but we need more people living here. And we need more people and I'm not always like, you need to buy. Like, you can have a great rental market. There's great people that rent. I'm not anti-rent. We rent a lot of apartments, but you do want people here as close to 365 as possible. Now, the second home market is real. I'm very for it, but ideally you have people that are here picking up trash, working in their communities, supporting volunteerism and nonprofits. You know, we are involved with the Atlantic City Community Fund. So many of those nonprofits are dependent on people volunteering. You know, coming in and like, you know, I'll give an example. My mom lives in Gardner's Basin. My mom lives in the Inlet, and she is a volunteer extraordinaire with the hydrangea trail and this and that. And like, she loves it. She's a retired person. She has more time. She's bringing skills. And Like, I want all those folks coming into Atlantic City and bringing their skills, their asset, their time, their talent, their treasure to really support great causes in this city. And so that's an important thing to me too, is philanthropy. Yeah. We got to build a stronger philanthropic ecosystem. And if I'm going to talk about something, I'm going to get on it. So, my family has been very dedicated through our Thrive AC Fund initiative for the last many years to support nonprofits, to make sure that we're putting our money where our mouth is, not into just development, not into small business, but into the nonprofit community as well. And I really want to rally that around. Just coming back to board presidency for the Atlantic City Community Fund, we're going to have a big event in September at a Hard Rock Backstage Cafe, which is an awesome venue. So that's September 15th. Getting more people to understand how transformational philanthropy can be. And, look, I've seen this in New York. I've seen this in Philadelphia. We need more of it in this town. And when Atlantic City really unlocks that, which I think we're close, it's going to be so helpful for a thriving Atlantic City, not just a surviving Atlantic City, for arts and culture and youth and this and that. That is something I'm really, really excited about kind of going forward too, with the community fund, with my own personal family initiatives. But there's so much good stuff happening, Mike. Yeah. Like it's such go time in Atlantic City, and it's like such a great tipping point. Man. I'm with you. So you talked about at the start of this, should I pull back or should I? It's like, no, full throttle. Go on Atlantic City right now, build the town that we want, that we have heard about from 60, 70, 80 years ago. Now, what an incredible city by the sea Atlantic City already is and will be in the coming years.
No, absolutely. Again, your enthusiasm, but also the seriousness in what you're doing when you're putting your feet down into it, putting your dollars into it, or other people when you're bringing the investors in. And we'll close in a little bit, Evan, but I love talking about Atlantic City to people with all the great things, the shows, the concerts, the this, the that, the restaurants, the coffee shops, but also what I've seen over the last few years, being involved with some different public service and also volunteering. That's what I did. I'm seeing the community. I'm seeing the people now, not just walking over that broken pole or stepping over, whether it's Chelsea EDC Midtown and I can go in Inlet or whatever. I believe that's a big part of it.
Huge.
But the residents, again, not that we have bad residents. It's just now there's that tie-in. You talk about the arts. I love arts, right? I can't draw a stick man. I can't do anything or play an instrument, but I love arts. And I didn't realize, Evan, how important that is. I know how important community is, but how important like the arts and those sort of things and the leadership sort of. So, and I know you touched it, but it's so important that, whether essential. It's the murals, go right ahead.
Essential. I mean, I know for me coming back, that was one of the things that inspired me, is sitting on Tennessee Avenue or going into that vacant space that had become an Arteriors, which is a pop-up art exhibition. This is one of the programs of the Arts Foundation from day one.
I had to figure out what the hell Arteriors were.
Yeah. But again, you take a vacant space, you turn it into a temporary gallery. And, there's so many of those moments where, a local artist, Heather Deegan Hires, is tremendously talented. She has a gallery in resorts. She's a tenant of the Loop, and she's a professional artist now. And when she came, she was just getting into her art career, we'll say. She was obviously an artist, but getting into her art career, and she painted a mural on the side of the beer hall. So Heather Deegan Hires is just a tremendous person, artist, and was building she wanted to become a professional artist. Heather was committed to becoming a professional artist when I met her, and she was going to do a mural on the beer hall. And when she was painting on that side of the beer hall, the amount of people that stopped, neighborhood folks, people that, maybe they lived in the rooming house or they were whatever. Like, these were not, these are some folks that maybe had a little down on the luck. Like, right. And they were inspired too. It connects all of us. Arts connects all of us. Public art is so important to how you view yourself, how you view your town, the pride you have in your place. And so I've been fully committed to that for over a decade now. And at Arts Foundation, we've got, well over 100 murals that we've put up in this town. We have more murals per capita than anywhere else that I know of. That is an incredible feat. And it matters to the way that folks view their town, the way that people think of Atlantic City, that, that's a beautiful thing. Or that's, I got to think about that. Or, whatever, that celebrates our history. We're working on a mural right now to celebrate history of sort of integration in the fire department here. And it's like, right, let's celebrate our history. Let's create beautiful works. Let's support local artists. Let's have them live in town. That ecosystem is thriving, and I see more and more people joining in every day. And again, that inertia is rolling, that ball is rolling in a positive direction. It is a beautiful thing to see, and inspires me, inspires you, inspires everybody. So, we need more of that. And that's why I think the philanthropic nonprofit kind of work, really, I think we're still pretty early days in that, and give that a decade. And like, oh my God.
To give a shout out, you made me smile when you were talking about Heather. Known her for a few years now, quite a few. And then walking in over this past weekend to Resorts Casino Hotel to a show, a friend was performing it, and there she is. She's sitting right. I was like, Heather, is that you? Because I didn't realize. I knew she was going in, and just a wonderful woman who does great work and enjoys what she's doing. Again, that's what we need more of. Listen, I really think that we're on a I don't know if it's the right word, revitalization.
The comeback.
What did you say? You said something about.
So look, everybody loves a comeback story, right? So Atlantic City is the comeback story. We're the Rocky story. And so I think that for us, if we can believe that and do the work, first you got to believe it,
right?
But you got to do the work.
Can't fake that, man.
What an incredible comeback this will be after, many times being knocked down. But this is the time that I feel like we're going to get past it, and the development, like we talked about, that ground up construction, community wise, and in the buildings is happening. And I also think it's important to consider that maybe for the first time that I think the casinos are fully on board with that too.
Thank you.
And I think that really matters. When Hard Rock came in and reopened, what was the Taj, and Ocean came in, they understand, like, we're not separate. We're all part of the same thing. So we rise together, we fall together. And I appreciate that the casinos know that and are supportive. And I always give a shout out to Hard Rock, the ownership, to Jim Allen, to Joe Gingoli, to Jack Morris, to the tribe, like meeting some of those, like they care about community wherever they are, and they show up for their place. And so Sharon, who leads a lot of that team, Sharon Pierce, amazing support of the community fund, and Michelle on her team, just great people. And so I'm always inspired by them as well, and appreciate that work. It's the casinos and everybody else. It's Atlantic City. It's one Atlantic City.
Right, 48 blocks.
48 blocks, brother.
And at one time, it wasn't quite like that.
Yeah.
And again, understood.
We can't change the past, though.
Right,
we can't change the past.
We can do it now.
We're doing
again,
it now.
Mentioning Hard Rock, Ocean, and some of the others, they really have bought in a big way into the community. And hey, go outside for a little bit, come back. But
Look, if you can stay a couple extra days, this extra night, that impacts their business very positively, and it impacts the small businesses very positively too. If you only come down for one night, well, maybe you're not taking a dinner out of the casino. Maybe you're not getting to the coffee shop. Maybe you're not. But if you stay a couple of days, and this is also, we didn't talk about Visit Atlantic City, why it's important to also think about Atlantic City as part of a region and be able to say, hey, well, you want to play golf? You want to go to a winery? Right. You want to go see Lucy Down Beach? You want to go to this, that, whatever, go to see Forsyths? There's so much in this little area of 30 minutes. That regional marketing, which I got to give a shout out to Gary and his team, Karina, Jess, everybody, Anthony, Dan, like all fantastic. That all, but that's what I'm saying. It feels like we're working. We got the talent, we got the playbook, and we're running the plays.
Right. And listen, you're a big part of that. Again, I want to thank you for joining us today. We'll do this again when you have time, like to get another 6 months or so into us. And of course, Pat and some of the others are going to be here. Michael, when you mentioned Michael Atkins from the Arts Foundation, we have so much in the way of talented folks. Ralph Hunter will be sitting here when you talk some of that. But I appreciate what you said too, because I love the past, Evan. I really do. I love our history, not just here, wherever it is in the country, wherever I've lived. But I also know we have to move forward, and that's what it's about. What we're doing, past, present, and what's to come.
Amen.
My man. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it, man.
Appreciate you, folks. That's it. Make sure you stay involved with us as well. Give us some suggestions. Go to Mike at acmikeNJ.com, and we'll bring on who you want us to bring on, because it's you that it's all part of. So thank you so much. So Evan, listen, as we close here, I want to give you an opportunity to let our listening and our viewers as well know where they can find you and your work, sir.
Sure. So AuthenticCityPartners.com is the site that we have for development. You can also find us with Cardinal and Heyday Coffee. Both of those are on AuthenticCityPartners.com as well. Visit OrangeLoop.com, has all of the great concepts and things happening in the Orange Loop. So visit OrangeLoop.com. And then the Atlantic City Community Fund is acommunityfund.org, acommunityfund.org. And those are kind of my Atlantic City Arts Foundation, shout out to them. Those are my main things. And then I'm working with Crops and Reed's Farm as well on food security, which is really important to me as well. We all know about Atlantic City's food desert. We're working on that as well to make sure we have food that's just, equitable, nutrient dense for our people here in Atlantic City. So that's something that's important for me as well.
Thank you so much. And we're going to be talking more with some other folks and you as well about that Atlantic City Community Fund, because of real special events coming up in a few months. So thanks again, brother. Appreciate you. Let's close this one out, and that's it, man. We'll be in touch. See you on the 48.